Ukraine. I don't think we should be as big of a part of that as we are.
Why not?
It's kind of their fight, honestly. I don't think it's really our place to be sending all of our taxpayers' dollars over there. You know, just
When a country attempts to invade a sovereign country right next to them, don't you think we should attempt to at least preserve liberal democracy across Europe in any way we can?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends. I just think in that situation, we shouldn't. They're pretty corrupt, in my opinion.
More corrupt than Russia, though?
No, I wouldn't say so.
It feels like there's an alternate reality where we didn't do anything at all, and Russia was able to take Ukraine with absolute ease, you know? They were able to just march in there, take everything, and then what's next? What if they want to take the next country? And then the next country, eventually, it's going to turn into US soldiers having to get involved. We literally gave like a very small portion of our GDP, and we've crippled our biggest enemy, both militarily and economically, right? Russia's not going to recover for decades. Doesn't it feel like this was a good return on investment?
Yeah, I guess yeah.
Doesn't it feel like, from a conservative's point of view, we should be trying to cripple our enemies with the least amount of deaths and the least amount of investment possible?
I agree.
And this allowed that to happen.
Then yes, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, cool.
I agree, yeah.
Wow, I'm actually amazed right there. Adam Mockler, our today's guest, went on Trump rally to debate Trump supporters, and he actually had some wins. And Adam, to be frank, for me and probably for Melania, people who are terminally online and trying to get into as much fights as it's possible and as much debates as it's possible, winning a debate with the person who's like fundamentally on the other side and so far to the right or so far to the left seems almost impossible, and that here you are just doing that with like ease. And and it's a huge problem for us today. The Ukraine aid advocacy, some politicians made the issue political, unfortunately, in the United States. So I wanted to ask you, is there hope? Is there hope in Republican Party, for instance, that we can convince people and that it is possible to convince anybody?
Yeah, so a little bit of it is isolationism, but there are three dominant lines of thinking throughout the MAGA movement right now when it comes to Ukraine. The first one would be the hardliners who think we need to axe all funding to Ukraine completely. They're usually under the impression that every dollar we send to Ukraine is a dollar that we could be using within our own borders for like homeless people or just securing our borders immigration-wise. And I think Republicans have done a really good job of creating this false dichotomy where we can only be helping American citizens or Ukrainian citizens when these two issues could not be farther separated, right? They're not related whatsoever. And I think Biden really needs to take control of the messaging and explain that a lot of the aid we're sending is in the form of old stockpiled military equipment that's nearing its expiration date already that we can subsequently restock and replenish. And it's actually beneficial for us. So that's the first type, are just people who are under the false assumption that this is somehow hurting American people. They think we need to axe all funding. There's another sect of Republicans who understand the importance of funding Ukraine. They think we should continue funding it as we are, but they think it never would have happened in the first place if Trump were president, right? They think Biden's weakness was the reason for the invasion, which also is not true, but that one's a little bit harder to dig into because you have to go into the context of the situation, like the years leading up to it.
And it's impossible to prove otherwise.
Yeah, it's all, you get into hypothetical situations. And then thirdly, you have these people who, there's honestly a good sector of Republicans who want to increase funding to Ukraine, and they completely understand the importance of it. And a lot of them tend to be veterans, like Vietnam veterans, so they understand what's happening. And there's also veterans I've talked to that don't want to increase funding. So I'd say those are the three dominant lines of thinking. And a little bit is rooted in isolationism. Like you said, Trump ran on a lot of isolationist platforms. Even right from the beginning, he wanted to build a wall on our border. He even flirted with the idea of pulling out of NATO too. So this is downstream from a lot of that. But a little bit of it is conspiracy thinking as well. So you have some people who think the only reason we're in Ukraine is because of Hunter Biden. I don't even know where that comes from, but that's a very small sector of people as well. And as you pointed out too, a lot of it is just anti-mainstream thinking. So like they just want to oppose everything the Biden administration is doing. But if you lay it out in terms of, like, you don't even use the word Biden, you just talk about how America's interest could be furthered by this, then they start to understand.
So it's not pointless talking to them, because I mean there are two schools of thoughts, if you will. The first one being we should all talk to each other, we should try to convince people, we should advocate for this and that, we should find approaches. And another one is like we should let some of these people loose, and we should talk to the people that, you know, we can at least persuade, and we should just leave those who already have their beliefs set, you know, just let them be and whatever. And it's a waste of resources. What do you think? Is it worth talking to anyone, or should we just let some people go?
It's worth trying to talk to most people, I think. Like, obviously there's some exceptions. If there are some hardliner Nazis or white supremacists, we probably shouldn't talk to these people. But most people that people view as the enemy online, like, I know conversations on Twitter or X can get really heated really quickly, but when you talk to these people face to face, it's a lot easier to try to convince them of something, to try to win them over. So what I would tell people, like, my call to action would be talk to people in real life as opposed to just fighting on Twitter, because you will find that when you're talking to them, you're like, oh, this is just like my aunt or uncle from a different reality who just doesn't quite understand where I'm coming from. And then from there, you can kind of find common ground and reason them into a position that they didn't reason themselves into before.
A lot of conservatives, I feel like, would call your idea of distributing some of the money that we're sending to Ukraine to Americans like socialism or communism. You don't think so?
No, it's not communism.
Well, I think when the government makes an investment in their people, they can do it in a way where it doesn't necessarily represent socialism or communism.
This guy was an interesting case because he admitted, yeah, we should be using this money to fund welfare programs in America. And I'm not sure if I uploaded the part of the video, but I try to take him to the next step, which is we can fund both of these simultaneously. Like, this isn't a one or other type of thing. We can be funding these welfare programs in America, securing our border, while also supplying Ukraine with old military equipment, which is also beneficial to us. So that's a really interesting thing.
Did he react to that? Did he go that far?
No, he said he still thinks it's one or the other. He still thinks that we're bankrupting American citizens by sending money to Ukraine, which is not true whatsoever. It's a lot of it's just misinformation. Like, even the guy from the very first clip at the beginning of the video, you can tell that he really hadn't heard the arguments I was giving before. Like, this was the first time hearing this. That really says a lot about the state of our media right now, where you can't even hear the opposing viewpoints when you need to.
It's just something that, you know, we've been talking about with guests on our channel, especially who are well versed in the world of media in America, especially, is that for some people, and what the administration has been lacking is, for some people you have to explain America's interest in this situation. It's not just about, you know, defending democracy. It's not just about doing the right thing. Some people understand the language of economy, and by that I mean war in Ukraine will, in fact, and does, and probably will still continue to boost American economy if the procurements, and if the military sector is going to expand, there's going to be a lot of different orders for different technologies. We can see that already in Europe. People are interested in purchasing American-made weapons and jets and whatnot. So all of that kind of would be a helpful argument for the people who are on the fence and for the people who worry about, money. I was wondering, why isn't that argument on the table, especially with the Republicans who are very keen on, defending America's economic interests first?
Yeah, so I should clarify that there are some Republicans who are in support of Ukraine. So there are center-right Republicans like Mitt Romney who really do understand the importance of that. But as you pointed out, there are a large sector of Republicans who think we need to axe funding. And I call what you just said like the selfish argument, but it's also the most effective argument there is. So basically you have to go at it from like, how could this benefit America the most? It's a little bit selfish, fighting a war by proxy. It's awful, obviously. But if you want to give an effective argument to Republicans, the return on investment argument is probably the strongest, the one that you just laid out. So I think that's something that the Biden administration needs to be hammering home on. And I get that Biden's super old, so whatever he says might not be super effective and strong, but like have someone like me as a mouthpiece. I don't know why people listen to me either, but like at least I can articulate the return on investment argument that does tend to be super effective to Republicans, because it really is about speaking their language. So if you say the words return on investment, Republicans are all about the economy and stuff. Something will like click in their head. They'll be like, oh, yeah, maybe that is true.
Speaking of listening to people like you, if you guys like thoughts like this and you would like to see more content like this, please do not forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, leave a comment, and overall, you know, as I always say, send this video to all your friends. Make sure it reaches the right ears so we can give more people like Adam here a platform to speak their mind.
Yeah, well, let's come back to this whole convincing people issue. I know that you're probably not a like TV viewer or something like that, but what would you think would be the most effective in terms of like the most effective way for advocating for our cause, for instance? Because we are here sitting in Ukraine, we don't have the luxury of like going there. What do you feel like the best way to communicate with the people, especially with people who are like far to the right or far to the left?
Talking to changing people's minds, requires, I'm going to use Hillary Clinton's word, deprogramming in a sense, a deprogramming of the media that they've been consuming over the past year. And I think that does just mean broadening their horizons in a gentle way, as opposed to being condescending or calling them I know I just said people are Kremlin mouthpieces, but that was true. You can't just call random people Kremlin mouthpieces when they're not aware of what's fully going on. Like at the beginning of that video, if that dude started saying stuff and I was like, you're just a propagandist, that wouldn't have been as effective as trying to gently pull them to the middle of understanding the return on investment argument. So for far right people, you want to appeal to the America first phrase that they like to use. How can fighting this war or helping Ukraine fight this war put America first, help move America's interests forward? And then with far left people, man, that's a whole other thing. A lot of them just think America bad. No matter what America does, you should take the opposite position. So that's also just trying to describe the importance of protecting liberal democracies abroad, I think is how you get to the left people. Well, maybe not the communists because they don't care about democracy, but they don't hold any, communists don't hold any structural power in America, thankfully. So they're not really as big of a concern. One of the main arguments I hear, before we wrap it up, which I'm sure you guys have heard many, many times, that this war was provoked by NATO, which is a really interesting one to me. And I guess I'm still trying to come up with the best way to counter that. But my main counter, I guess, is usually saying that Ukrainian citizens have been yearning for a liberal democracy for decades, and Putin has consistently tried to install puppet regimes, right? So even in 2014, you guys ousted Yanukovych and then tried to move towards a more liberal. So when the actual citizens of Ukraine have a will to be more Western aligned, why is it Russia's right at all to like stomp on that? But I need to find a way to condense that into a more like,
Well, the NATO point is that Ukraine has been, how do you call it? I forgot. So we had this thing in Constitution which said that we are not aligned with anyone and we cannot enter any alliance such as NATO. So we were basically like, I don't know, Switzerland. But Russia invaded anyway.
In no other way.
In no
like
other way we've been like Switzerland,
except for that one.
But that one, we were Switzerland before 2014. Anyway, Russia invaded nevertheless, and we had any chance. And you can see it right now because like right now when people talk about Ukrainian accession to NATO, you can see right now that there's not that many chances of it. Even if war ends, it will be a decade-long process.
It's a long way.
Yeah, and in 2020, 2021, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even nobody actually invited us, gave us a membership action plan.
Invitation, not official invitation. That wasn't the thing.
There wasn't a thing. Nobody even talked about that.
So it's like we want to go into NATO so badly, and they won't let us. That to assume that they would want willingly, you know, to take us there before this whole thing happened is absolutely insane. Like it's all about that. You know, if we were doing the half of the things that Russians accuse us of, we would have been a very awesome country. Like they're like, ooh, like Americans have bases there, and they want to be part of. They're going to be part of NATO. They have all these jets there, all these American mercenaries. They're like powerful. We're like, I wish, I don't know. Like it would have been so damn cool if that was true. But no, it's just one guy with a drone. That's it. So yeah. On this note, guys, Adam, thank you for being a guest on our show. Mark, good job. I want to remind you guys again to please subscribe, like, and share videos from our channel. And yeah, subscribe to hear more thoughts like this, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.